All right, we will go ahead. Let's go ahead and get started a little bit for tonight. Just so that everybody knows, my name's Ted Doom. I am one of the program coordinators at the Cedar Hills Recreation Center. Tonight, we will be talking about our preschool programs coming up for this fall for the 2022-23 school year. As we go through, we'll have a presentation. We will talk about different aspects of our programs at Cedar Hills, at Conestoga, which also includes the Fano Farmhouse and the bilingual program at Conestoga. And then we also have the Nature Center, which has programs at the Nature Center and also at Jenkins Estate. We do ask, as all of you guys are in, if you guys can mute yourself unless you are asking questions during the presentation. That way we can cut down on a lot of the background noise as we go through so that everybody can hear better. We are recording the presentation. That way it can be available online after the fact if anybody is unable to make it for the meeting tonight. I will go ahead and let our other program coordinators for Conestoga and also the Nature Center introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Sarah Trevino, she, her pronouns. I'm the program coordinator at Conestoga and the Fano Farmhouse preschools. At Conestoga, we have the Bilingual Spanish preschool, and then Fano Farmhouse, we have 4 classes over there as well, which is nearby Conestoga off of Hall Boulevard.
Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Fort. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm one of our program coordinators over at the Tualatin Hills Nature Center, where we have the Nature Kids program that runs at the Nature Center, and then we also have it running up at the Jenkins Estate.
And then with us today also is Zach from the Conestoga Recreation Center. He will be available to help interpret for Spanish if the need arises. So if you do have questions and you prefer speaking in Spanish, we do have that available. And I will go ahead and let Zach introduce himself as well.
Hola, soy Zacarías. Si tienes unas preguntas durante esta presentación, por favor, nos pregunta a mí. Voy a ser aquí para traducir a toda la gente que tienen como preguntas o quieren, entender mejor lo que va a pasar en nuestras facilidades, como la facilidad de Cedar Hills, Conestoga, la bilingual. En la locación de Conestoga, el centro de la balanza y también el centro de la naturaleza. Si tienes más preguntas, por favor, me pregunta yo. Puedes hacerlo por el video o por el audio, o también lo puedes hacerlo en la forma del chat. Si tienes preguntas en cómo podemos ayudar a usted a entender mejor nuestra presentación que está en inglés, por favor, nos deja ayudar a usted. Gracias.
All right, thank you, Zach. And so again, as we do go through the presentation, we're going to start today going through reviewing our parent handbook. That way everybody kind of has a basic idea as to our preschool program. We'll go through our registration instructions and the steps to get registered. And then at the end, we will have that question and answers. Feel free as we're going through, you can type questions into the chat. Some of them we will get an answer right back to you into the chat. Other ones we will be covering during the presentation. And so we will make sure that we get the answers to those. If you feel that you asked a question during the presentation and we did not answer it, feel free at the end during our questions and answers, and we can come back and get you a little bit more information on it. And so with that, Sarah, I will let you go ahead and take the floor.
Great. First and foremost, safety is our top priority in our programs, and COVID is in the forefront, and we certainly are following all protocol, local and national as well, to keep all those involved safe and programs running. We currently have a daily health check as part of the process. Face coverings required for all. Hand sanitizing and washing practicing around food after returning from inside and beginning the program. We have a vaccination policy for staff. and all our parent volunteers that we're just starting to welcome back into the classroom since COVID. We have a vaccine requirement for those as well. We are proud that we've been operating our 9-month preschool programs all throughout the pandemic and take pride in our safety protocols and precautions to continue to be able to offer this program in a safe manner. The preschool programs at Cedar Hills, Conestoga and Fano Farmhouse follow the Reggio Emilia child-led exploratory philosophy, and also the Conestoga program is bilingual Spanish and English as well.
And then over at the Nature Center, we follow a nature-based preschool program where we're integrating environmental education into a program called the Creative Curriculum, which is just a child-led discovery-based form of preschool. So our staff, we have lots of staff at our different centers. They're all super passionate about working with preschool age kids, and they come with a range of experience. Our ratios change based on the different programs. So we have a ratio that goes up to 1 teacher per 9 kids, and that can get as low as 1 to 6, but it just depends on the program. And our model is to have a lead teacher who does a lot of the parent communication and curriculum development, and co-teachers who lead the class and teach in the class. And our lead teachers are in some of the classes teaching alongside the co-teachers, and in some of our classes we have 2 co-teachers together, and then a coordinator to go and oversee the program. So that's me and Sarah and Ted.
All right, our registration, we kind of roll out in phases. We will actually be starting tomorrow morning for our currently enrolled students. Registration tomorrow will be done at the individual center. So if you're looking to register for the Fano Farmer program, it would be done through the Conestoga Rec and Aquatic Center. If you're looking for the Nature Center or Jenkins Estate, that's done through the Nature Center. And if you're looking at Jumpstart or Kids First, that will be done at Cedar Hills. The registration will be done at each center. So by calling the center that you want to register for, we will essentially take a waiting list, if you want to call it that, as people call in, and we will put the names down on a page. And then once we get everybody in, that way we don't have everybody holding right at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. We'll call you back and get everything set up in your guys' account. In order to register for any of the programs, we do have a $50 non-refundable enrollment fee. And once that fee is paid, then you are considered enrolled for the program for the upcoming year. Starting next Wednesday will be our open enrollment for all families. Registration starting next Wednesday will be done online starting at 9 o'clock. The page here does have all of the registration codes for the classes. I know it is a lot of information, and what I would direct you more is to our website and the link at the bottom. If you go to the preschool page for the classes, all of the information for the different programs, the times and dates and everything else can be found right there. And that will also include that registration code in order to get you registered for registration if you're currently enrolled starting tomorrow morning or starting next week for open enrollment. Financial information for classes, just so that everybody knows, we do take the overall cost of the program and we divide that by 9 months. So we have an equal payment for each program for the month. That way it's not, you know, one price 1 month, another price the next month. And it just rounds out overall for the entire 9-month season so that it's easy tuition payments for everybody to remember. Tuition payments will be due on the 15th of the month prior to the start of the month. So September tuition will be due on August 15th. Typically, the tuition payment will be loaded onto your guys' Tualatin Hills accounts 1 to 2 weeks before this tuition due date. And then after the 15th, If tuition is not paid, we do assess a $30 late fee. And then if tuition's still not paid by the first of the month and class is starting, we do consider you unenrolled from the program at that point.
Just going to briefly describe the programs at the centers. Cedar Hills has the older group, the 4-year-olds, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, morning and afternoon. And then the 3.5 to 4.5-year-olds on Tuesdays and Thursdays, again, morning and afternoon. Fano Farmhouse has a range of ages, and the older groups are in the afternoon on Tuesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Our youngest group, 2.5 to 3.5, Tuesday, Thursday mornings, and also Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings for the 3-year-olds. Bilingual Spanish. We have the older group Monday, Wednesday, Friday morning, and the younger group Tuesday, Thursday morning. Nature Center, they have their older kids, the 4-year-olds, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, both at Nature Center in the morning and Jenkins Estate in the morning, and the afternoon at Nature Center. And then their 3-year-olds on Tuesday, Thursday mornings, both at Jenkins and the Nature Center. We follow the Beaverton School District calendar. We don't take the teacher in service days, but we have the following holidays and schedule to follow. And again, this is subject to change as the school year gets closer based on BSD's calendar.
So for check-in and out from the program, we do require a photo ID, and the person that's picking up needs to match that ID, and that also needs to match the name on our authorized pickup list. And you'll be able to update your pickup list in your online THPRD account. So if you have somebody that you want to add on there, you can add them online. And we ask that everyone is always on time for pickup and for drop off. We start our classes immediately right after you drop your child off, and our teachers get right into sanitizing the classrooms right after pickup. So we try to keep really close to those class times. Masks are required for everyone in the preschool program, and that includes at pickup and drop off. So if you're dropping your child off, we ask that our parents are also masked. And then when you drop your child off, we have a couple of COVID questions that we ask. Have they been exposed to someone with COVID in the last 5 days? And are they experiencing any symptoms of COVID? And then we give them some hand sanitizer and they head on in. And on the next slide, we'll talk about what we're doing. So for all of our programs, we follow a pretty similar schedule with a couple of changes based on the location or the program, but our general format is we have some free play at the beginning of the class time, and then we go to our circle time and we learn some songs, we learn about our theme for that day or that week. We cover the calendar, the weather, all of those sorts of things. And then we move into a snack time or story time, and then we do some individual learning centers. And so at the Nature Center, we're following the creative curriculum, and at the other preschools, they're following the Reggio Emilia style of curriculum. They're all discovery-based forms of preschool. At the Nature Center, we go on a hike every day, either out into the nature park if we're over there, or at Jenkins, we go around the Jenkins estate. Up at Fano Farmers, they have a really great outdoor area. Over at Cedar Hills, they have a fun playground that they'll go and visit. And by then it's time for pickup. And so you'll bring your ID and pick them up from preschool.
So there are certain things that we want the kids to bring and things that we encourage them not to bring. We do provide all the supplies they need for school. You know, things that they can bring with them is having a backpack so that they can put things into. A reusable water bottle that they can have throughout the day, use during class and also during snack time. Bringing a snack. We do ask that it's more on the healthy side. We don't want a lot of, the sugary foods and candy and stuff like that in the preschool classroom. Something that can be eaten in a short period of time, more of that kind of a 5-minute snack versus, a full lunch. We have that snack just to keep them going and energized throughout class, but we don't want to spend, a half hour to an hour focusing on, that snack time. So we do ask that it's a modest snack. Other things that's important for people to have is multiple masks, especially with the younger kids. People like to touch masks and they get dirty or they get wet. And so it's always important to have extra masks available for them to swap out during the day, as we do require currently right now for Tualatin Hills, everybody 2 and over inside the buildings are wearing masks. Another thing would be a change of clothes. Most of the centers, we have a place in the classrooms where we can hang on to that set of clothes, or you can leave it in a backpack and travel back and forth for the day. But we do ask that we have a change of clothes just because we're going to be outside, whether it's raining or whatever the weather is. We do a lot of art projects, crafts, stuff like that. And we just want to make sure that, if something is wet, dirty, messy, that we do have a chance to be able to change and put on something that's clean and dry. Other things we want to make sure is that people are dressed for the weather. They have rain jacket if it's raining outside, boots to put on their feet. If you want to bring in a pair of boots that's besides their shoes, so that they, when they go outside and they're playing outside, they have a pair of boots they're wearing, we can definitely do that. Couple things that, we want to make sure that they're not bringing is a lot of things from home. Toys, stuffed animals, jewelry, anything that you don't really want to lose or to get broken or lost. We really ask that you're leaving it at home and not bringing it to class. Share days or show and tell days, we are still working on, and it depends on what our current guidances are, whether we will have, a show and tell, like it used to be back in the day where you could bring something from home and share it with everybody in class. Right now, we really try to keep that limited items from home so that we're not passing things around the classroom. That doesn't mean that we can't have share and show and tell. We can use projects, activities we're doing in class, things from hikes or anything else. And that still gives that open dialogue and a chance for kids to share, even sharing a project that they just did in class.
Field trips, traditionally, we've done 2 field trips, one in the fall and one in the spring, and that's changed during COVID, but we're certainly looking at getting back there. And also what staff have done as an alternative is brought in folks, for example, brought in some local firefighters and presented at class. But how they work traditionally is that they're scheduled during class time on a normal class day. Adults of the participants transport the children and join in on the field trip for that day.
Teacher conferences, all of our centers will have a conference throughout the year. All of our preschool courses, we offer a spring conference, typically in April. Some of our programs also offer a fall conference as well. We do also have check-ins at drop-off and at pickup, which is a chance for the teachers to convey, things that happen real quickly during class. We try not to make it a lengthy time. If you spend 5 minutes with one person and you have 15 people trying to check out or drop off, it tends to get to be a very lengthy process. And we can also set up times if as a parent you have questions for the teachers or about the kids, we can set up a one-on-one time, whether it's a phone call or if you meet after a class or something like that. So that is definitely an option in addition to the teacher conferences. Behavior, we try to work with the kids in the preschool setting. We realize that oftentimes this is the first real school setting that the kids have been in. It's a new environment. They are learning, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. Really, our expectations is that the kids will follow directions, that they're respectful to each other. They're listening as other students are talking, as the teachers are talking, and that, they're being kind to each other. They're safe and they're being respectful. As we go through supporting behaviors, teachers will use clear communication. We want to make sure that we're providing clear direction to the students, giving them choices that, are not only acceptable for the teachers, but do give the students a choice of what they want to do. We will work on, the desired behavior, making sure that we're praising good behavior. Oftentimes we will ignore some of that attention-seeking behavior and really work to address and reinforce the positive behavior. If we do have some of that negative behaviors, we'll work to redirect their energies, getting them focused on another activity or different solution or different choice of how they can apply their time. If it does come to be something that's persistent and keeps distracting from, the class, we'll work with parents to set up, some kind of plan to better support. Our goal is to educate and to get all of the children used to being in a classroom setting and to know what they're going to need to do. And so they're prepared and ready to go as they enter into kindergarten.
For restroom, our teachers go and accompany the kiddos to the restroom. And for all of our programs, except for the one for 2.5-year-olds, they do need to be completely bathroom independent. So the teachers are going to wait outside the restroom or just inside the restroom door, but they need to be able to go and take care of themselves in the restroom. We always encourage families to go and help them take a potty break before class because our classes are pretty short. And so we want to go and not have too many potty breaks in the middle of class. So if you restroom them right beforehand, usually they only need one during the class, but sometimes a few more.
Great. With sick kiddos, we just ask that you help by keeping them home when they're sick so they can rest and recuperate and be back to the program quickly and keep the germs down. And it's really appreciated if your kiddo is going to be out, if you can call the center and let us know. And unfortunately, we're not able to give credits for missed days since we still have to have staff and run the program while your child may be out. All of our staff is trained and certified in CPR and first aid. And we hope that, mostly all that are needed are going to be Band-Aids and ice packs and kind, supportive words of encouragement. If anything were to happen, we would reach out to those who are further trained to summon the support and help that we need. And we have first aid kits and mobile phones for all of our staff if they're traveling off-site.
We believe in lots of open and consistent communication with families. So we will reach out to you first to check in and check out. Our teachers like to connect with families then, but we also do a lot of communications via email and phone call. So we just ask that you keep your information up to date on your Inside THPRD account. And then there's some other ways that the different classes connect. We like to have a monthly or weekly newsletter. Some of our classes use Instagram. And so there's just lots of different ways that we like to keep you up to date on what's happening in the classroom. And then we have volunteer opportunities, which have changed a little bit during the pandemic, but that's another way that you can connect with the class. At the Nature Center right now, we have at-home volunteer opportunities where we send kits to make Play-Doh home. But for some of the other classes, they've started having parent volunteers come back into the classroom. And then we also like to go and encourage families to communicate proactively. So if you know something is coming up with your child, or if you're going through something at home and you want to let your teachers have a heads up with that, we like to just be in the loop on things so that we can go and help support your child while they're at school. And then for our cancellation policy, we sometimes have inclement weather, and so we will try and reach out to you when we know that if school is going to be canceled. But the best way to keep up to date if school is going to be canceled is to check the THPRD website. It's also posted on the little reader across the TV. So if you turn on the news in the morning, it will say if THPRD facilities are closed. And then there's a hotline. So the number is 503-614-4018. And you can call that number and it will say whether or not the programs are going. Sometimes programs might run at one center and not at another center, just depending on like the elevation. So we have some classes up at the Jenkins Estate, and if the buses go on the snow routes, then we're not going to go and run classes up there because it's at a higher elevation and the hill gets really slippery, but it might run at another location. So we just ask you to be proactive and call that number and make sure that class is running if it seems like it's a little bit snowy out there.
And then our, program evaluation, we will do an evaluation for all of the kids who are in the program. The teachers evaluate throughout the year. We'll work on, the motor skills and their development, whether they're learning the ABCs, numbers, letters, colors, all of that. And that's really covered in that spring conference. And then the other part of the evaluation is making sure that we're getting evaluations from parents. The more feedback we get about our program, the better we can offer our program. Whether it's positive feedback or negative feedback, it all helps us to grow and be a stronger program. And with that kind of sums up our presentation for tonight. Couple things I just want to kind of go back over and touch over. I know I saw a couple questions. So registration starts tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock for currently enrolled students and their families. So if there's a younger brother, younger sister, sibling that is looking to sign up, if somebody is currently enrolled now, that qualifies for enrollment for tomorrow. Starting next Wednesday, we'll start open enrollment for anybody, as long as they meet, the age requirements and criteria for the program. That'll be open enrollment starting at 9 o'clock. Best way to register for the open enrollment is going to be online. You can also come into any of the facilities to register as well. The website right there on the screen now in the presentation takes you to our preschool information page on the Tualatin Hills website. If you were to go just to tualatinhills.org, you can go to activities and then preschool, and it will take you to that same page as well. All of the information for Conestoga, Cedar Hills, and the Nature Center is up on there. It's 3 program coordinators for each of the centers who oversee the preschool program. Feel free, you can send us emails or you can call the center and leave us a message. We're happy to get you any information that you need or that you want to know about the preschool program. With that, I do want to thank everybody for taking your time to meet with us today. We will go into our question and answers. So if you have any questions, feel free, you can type it into the chat and we can respond to it. We can also work, if you let us know that you have a question, we can call on you and answer those questions. And we do have Zach available as well if you would prefer to speak in Spanish as well.
Ted, I have a couple of questions from the chat that may have elicited a longer response. So I wanted to get to them in the Q&A and we'll give some people some time to think about their questions or ask additional questions. The first question is actually for Sarah Trevino. The question is, are students in the bilingual program primarily from Spanish-speaking homes or from English-speaking homes? Sarah, could you respond to that, please?
I'd be happy to. Based off our current classroom, I would estimate that about a quarter are from native Spanish-speaking households. And yep. And then I would guess that about 3/4 or maybe 1/3 to 2/3 are from native English-speaking households.
Great, thank you. And then this is for any of you, Ted or Rachel or Sarah. What is the policy if there is a COVID case in the class? That's one question. And then a follow-up question is, or what happens if a student is exposed to COVID? What are our quarantine or testing requirements? So could you just talk a little bit about, what happens if we have a student that's exposed to COVID, kind of all of the different scenarios, and then what is our policy if there's a COVID case in class?
Yeah, I can take that on if you want. So this is a great question right now, and I can let you know what our policy is at this moment right here, but also just know that our guidelines have been updated as the CDC updates the quarantine period. So right now, if you have a confirmed exposure outside of class, so you are told that somebody that's around your child has tested positive, we ask that you quarantine from the class for 5 days. Unless your child is fully vaccinated. And so there's a 5-day quarantine. And then if they are starting to show symptoms, then the quarantine can be extended if they haven't resolved those symptoms by the 5th day. So say on day 5, they still have a cough, then the quarantine will actually be extended to 10 days. And then after that full quarantine, if they still have a residual cough or a runny nose or some other symptom, we ask for them to be 24 hours symptom free. And then if there is an exposure inside of our class, so we know that a child in class has tested positive, then we do have to go through a quarantine period for that class. And so we'll go and shut down the class for a quarantine, and then we will notify all of the families that have been connected to that exposure. And then we're going to go and follow our quarantine period. So it will be probably when we've had it, it's usually the full 10-day quarantine, but it just recently got shortened to 5 days. So we'll do a 5-day quarantine. And then if they don't show any symptoms, then we could go and restart the class. But, knock on wood, everyone is healthy and we're able to go and get the class started again. If they are showing secondary symptoms, so we have a really helpful guide for all of the different possible symptoms. There are some symptoms that are called secondary symptoms. So if they have a sore throat, if a child has 2 secondary symptoms, so they have both a sore throat and maybe nausea, then they have to go into the full quarantine COVID procedures. And so they'll go and quarantine for 5 days. Unless they get a negative COVID test. So if a child has a sore throat and another secondary symptom, we'll go and you can either have them do their full quarantine or you can get them tested. And if they tested negative, then they only have to quarantine for 24 hours. And then when they're symptom free, they can come back to class. I see, is there a list of primary versus secondary symptoms? Yeah, so we are following, we have an internal document with our COVID symptoms. I don't know if we share it out or not. The thing to know is, so we follow what's called the Communicable Disease Management Plan, and it's been updated over and over and over again. And so we are coordinating with families on a case-by-case basis. So if your child is sick, we ask that you go and notify the center that they're at. And then one of the coordinators will give you a call and be like, okay, so what are the symptoms that they have? And then we'll let you know how to proceed from there. The primary symptoms of COVID is kind of the big 4. So if they have a new cough or worsening cough, if they have a fever of over 100.4, if they have a loss of taste or smell, and if they have, oh wait, I went over fever. What's our last one? Cough, loss of taste or smell. Ted, help me.
I would have to go back and pull it up, but we do have, and the hardest part about it all is what we have now in place could be completely different by the time we start preschool. But we do follow all of the recommendations from the Oregon Health Authority and the CDC as we, decide how we're going to proceed in situations as they arise.
I believe the fourth primary symptom is either chills or loss of taste of smell. And then your secondary symptoms are going to include things like diarrhea, nausea, vomiting, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, those things. So yes, but again, they are changing all the time.
Yeah, chills was added. That's what it was. So chills originally was a secondary symptom, and then they moved that to a primary symptom. So as we learn more about COVID, those protocols might be updated. And so we just ask if anyone has an exposure that they know of, if anyone is having any sort of sickness, that they just let us know, and then we will go through it really clearly with you when that happens.
I'd be happy to answer the question about independent toileting. I don't know if you see my child on the screen, but I had the same question for him going into preschool, and they do pretty well. They do pretty well, and just like preschool with anything, we are supporting, encouraging, positive reinforcing, and just.
Our cat's kind of blocking views.
Yep, our cat's blocking the view. We
Right
just
there,
support and
because our
encourage
cat's
them.
blocking views.
Yep,
And my view, by the way.
and they do pretty good if they have a sense of that potty training and they're confident and comfortable. The biggest thing sometimes is the toilet flush can be a little bit scary, but we know that and support them.
Couple of additional questions from the chat. One of the questions was the Tualatin Center have a Jumpstart program for 3.5 to 4.5-year-old kids? And I wanted to just clarify, Cedar Hills Recreation Center has a Jumpstart program for 3.5 to 4.5-year-old students. So Jumpstart is offered at Cedar Hills. If you're wondering if the Nature Center has a Jumpstart program, the Nature Center offers Nature Kids. So hopefully that answers that question. There are also a couple of other questions about how successful do you find your 3-year-old students at toileting independently? I'm concerned about the ability to wipe successfully at this age, leading to irritation and infection issues. Does anyone want to take that for our young ones?
I think that's the one that Sarah just took, right?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes.
was that the same question? Sorry, there's another one about our 2-year-old is still in diapers. Are we understanding correctly that he does not need to be fully potty trained to attend the 2.5-year-old class?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so right now for our preschool programs that are 3.5 and over, all of the kids do have to be completely toilet trained in order to enroll in the program. Conestoga does offer at the Fano Farmhouse a program for younger kids, younger than 3.5, that does not require them to be fully toilet trained.
Great. There's also a couple of questions about what percentage of students tend to be returning or siblings. I think that answer depends on the class. I think all of us at each center is a little bit different. It's fairly common for our 3 to 4-year-olds to sort of graduate, if you will, up to that 4 and 5-year-old next level class. And then there's, probably a handful of siblings across the district, but I wouldn't say they're in huge, huge numbers. Ted or Sarah or Rachel, would you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say we definitely have, multiple family members coming through the program. I have been working with the preschool program. This is my second full year in the 9-month preschool working at Cedar Hills. And, I know that we have parents who have their kids enrolled now who had an older sibling, a few years ago that was enrolled in the program. So I think there is a lot of that family draw, and as, multiple kids in the same family going through. And it really does kind of tend to be hit and miss, but I think there's a good correlation of return families in the programs.
Great, thank you. There's also a couple of questions about the age cutoffs in terms of, for example, if my daughter is 3 years, 3 months old in September, can she enroll in the 2.5 to 3.5 class? Or would she need to be in a 3 to 4-year-old class since she will age past 3.5 within the school year? So if one of you could just talk about how the ages work and how old students need to be at the start of the program.
Yeah, so all of our classes start as of September 1st. That's the age that we're going by for the program. So if your daughter is 3 years and 3 months at the start of the program, then she wouldn't be old enough, as of September 1st, she wouldn't be old enough to be in the 3.5 and older class. And so they are going to age up as, obviously as we go through the school year. But the date we really look at is as of September 1st, how old is the child?
Thanks, Ted. We also have some questions about how do teachers deal with any sensory issues such as loud noises or bright lights causing anxiety? And then also similar to that, is there a policy for kids who are extra shy or have big emotions at pickup or drop off? So can you just talk about some of the support resources that we have for students?
Yeah, that's a great question. We're super lucky. We have a whole department for inclusion, and they provide us lots of different supports for our classrooms in whatever form that the teachers need it. So they both go and support children that have an identified disability, so children that are neurodivergent, maybe children who are on the spectrum or have significant sensory issues. They also provide us lots of support if we have any questions about things that come up. So if we have a child that we know has some sensitivities to different things, we can reach out to them for support. So some of the things that they've provided us, we have noise canceling headphones. We do lots of visual aids for children that maybe have difficulty understanding like what's happening next, can give a lot of anxiety for kids. And so we do lots of visual supports. We have some of our children have a disability that requires having an aide, and so they'll have an inclusion aide come to the class and attend the class with the child. And then our teachers are just trained on how to support children. So for ones that we know have a lot of difficulty at check-in and check-out, one of the things that they work on is building a really strong relationship with those kids and that trust to go and help them get through that separation anxiety. It's super common. So September is usually kind of a difficult month. And then they get into that routine and it gets easier and easier. So sometimes different things work for different kiddos. Sometimes having that clean break from parents where they drop them off and they're gonna cry and they get into class and 5-10 minutes later, they're in there playing with their buddies. And there are some of them who need that really slow separation from families. And so at the nature center, they need to just be able to see them out the window for the first few minutes of class, and then they get integrated in there. So it's really on a case-by-case basis, and our teachers try and have a really open communication with families so that you can go and also help us know what things your child needs in order to support them. But we also try to have a quiet space in the classroom. So for kids that have kind of a sensory overload and need to have somewhere to go and calm down, some of our classrooms, one of our classes up at Jenkins Estate, they recently got a little tent for kids. So sometimes they get a little bit overstimulated and need a little break. And so they'll go and they'll hang out in the play tent. And then once they've had their time to go in and calm down, they'll go and re-enter the group. So it's really based on what the kids need. And we just go and communicate with families about it at the end of the day too, to see if there's any tactics you use at home that help support them that we can integrate into the class.
Great, thank you, Rachel. And then there's also just a general question about teacher qualifications, education, and training. So if we could just talk about the minimum qualifications for our teachers, our lead teachers, and the training that our staff have. Ted or Sarah, do you want to answer? Rachel, go for it.
I can talk about, so we have, multiple levels. All of our teachers have some experience working with kids. Some of them have degrees, which, go into early childhood development and learning. A lot of our teachers have been past teachers in different centers. Typically, most of our programs in the district has a lead teacher that's associated with the class. Sometimes they are not in the class all the time. Sometimes they're in the class the whole time. That lead teacher, we are looking for someone who has multiple years experience teaching and instructing. So we are not, putting somebody who has no experience into the classroom and, telling them to go and run with it. We want to make sure that we can provide that quality program and that our teachers do have that experience. Some of our co-teachers or our teachers' assistants could have less experience. Typically for our co-teachers, we're looking for them to have at least a year of experience as they're coming into classes. And then our teachers' assistants could be, sometimes we have people straight out of high school that, it may be their first time working in a program, and we're working with other teachers who are there to build on their experience and what they know and to help grow as a teacher. So we definitely try to have, that good source of experience from the lead teacher. And then we do have a mix, kind of varied experience. Typically, people have at least a year of teaching experience before they're in the preschool program.
Thanks, Ted. Excuse me, thank you. There have been a couple of comments about, is it possible to arrange virtual tours of the preschool programs? And so I would say, if you're interested in a virtual tour or perhaps even an in-person tour, visiting the classroom when perhaps it's not currently in session after program hours, please feel free to reach out to the center that you are interested in exploring and in visiting, and you can make those arrangements directly with either Rachel, Sarah, or Ted. We have a couple of questions about, is there ever a time a student would be alone one-on-one with a teacher, such as the restroom or in a disciplinary instance where a child needed to be removed from a situation? I'll respond to that one. We encourage our staff never to be one-on-one with a student teacher ratio for the safety of both the teacher and the student. If there is a situation where we need to step aside with a student, we encourage our staff to reach out to extra support staff that may be available. So that could be radioing to the front desk to ask for an extra hand if we're worried about ratios. But if just one child needs to go to the restroom, we'll ask if there's another child that maybe needs to go to the restroom and do a buddy system. So we have a couple of kids going to the restroom with a staff member. So we strongly encourage and require our staff not to be alone in a one-on-one situation for everyone's safety. There's also a follow-up question about teachers. What are teachers paid? We pay teachers in accordance with a pay equity assessment based on their experiences and based on the pay grade for the position that they have applied for and been hired for. So if you're interested in more specific information, you can visit our website and look at job postings there to get a feel for what we pay our staff. And then I'm gonna if I have not answered your question, I tried to stay up on the chat, but there were a couple of questions that came through simultaneously. So if we have not answered your question yet, please feel free to re-enter it into the chat. I'm trying to scroll back through to make sure that I think we had got to all of our questions. Again, the best information can be found on our website. I did also include the link in the chat to financial aid. There was a question about, are there tuition discounts if you enroll more than one child? Unfortunately, there are not, but we do have financial aid that is available. So I included that in the website, and then also included contact information for each of our program coordinators that is here tonight and is over each of the individual preschool programs. Again, best way to get information is to go to the website or to contact the program coordinator directly of the program that you're interested in. We have another question in the chat that says, do we have the same teacher or teachers in the classroom all year long? Ted or Rachel or Sarah, do one of you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so we do hire teachers to stay for the whole year. That said, if they, accept another opportunity somewhere, it does happen sometimes that we will lose a teacher and have to have a new teacher join a class. But we do aim to go and have the same teachers throughout the year. We really like having that consistency for our students.
And then a couple of clarifying questions. As long as the child meets the age requirement by the start of the season, so meaning September when the program starts, that is okay. And yes, that is okay. So you are correct in clarifying that. Next question, if we need to relocate after the registration for the September session is done, is $50 the only amount that will be charged?
And so ultimately, yes, that is correct. So if you decide to enroll tomorrow morning or next Wednesday for our program, the only charge you will have is that $50. As we get in, our September tuition will be due on the 15th of the month prior. So on August 15th, September tuition will be due. So up until that point, if you decide that you no longer want to attend the program, you can drop out and it is only that $50. Once we get to August 15th and you've paid for September tuition, you can drop out of the program. We do ask that you let us know in writing if it's something that you wanted to cancel out of the program. But ultimately, if you've paid for September tuition and you decide that you don't want to continue after that, we can drop you out as of the end of September.
Thank you, Ted. Another question in the chat is, are you considered a childcare or school by the state of Oregon? I'll answer this one because it gets a little tricky with semantics and definitions. So all of our THPRD preschool programs are recorded with the state, but because we are a government agency, we are not required to be licensed by the state. And so generally the categories are defined by licensed, license exempt, and recorded. And so we are a license exempt recorded program with the state. And Janelle, I would encourage you to reach out to any of our program coordinators and we can talk a little bit more about that if you have any additional questions about that. Great, thank you, Janelle. Any other questions?
I just wanted to share for those who were asking about the virtual tour, there is a really fantastic video on the website of our Fano Farmhouse program, and it's worth watching in the meantime.
And I think I'll add to that, like, even though that video is just for Fano farmers, it's pretty similar at other locations as far as like setup goes. So it's a really good view into kind of what a typical preschool classroom looks like for THPRD.
I will also put that website in the chat for the Conestoga Preschool if people want to take a look at that as well.
We also used to do our open house and our orientation in person. Right now, we're doing those things virtually. So usually you would come out and you'd get a little peek into a classroom to do open house, but this year we are doing it virtually.
So I say again, if anybody has questions, feel free, you can add them into the chat or let us know. All of our contact information, Sarah and Rachel and myself is on the screen. And we are the program coordinators for each of the centers offering the preschool programs currently in the district. You can always, again, reach out to us, send us an email or give us a call at the centers. We're happy to answer any questions that you guys do have.
We will continue to hang out for a few minutes, but I do understand people are signing off. So thank you so much for attending. And we look forward to meeting you and hopefully enrolling your children and family members in our programs.
Hello.
Hi.
I had a question about the registration. So for new families, the registration will be online, and does that link go live at 9 a.m.? Am I understanding that correctly?
That is correct. So yeah, so new registrations starting next Wednesday on the 9th. Up until 9 o'clock, classes will be suppressed on the website. And so you won't be able to see the classes. Once we hit 9 o'clock, it will essentially flip a switch, and then all of those class enrollments will be available for you to enroll. And then if you pay the enrollment fee for the respective program, at that time you would be considered enrolled once that's been paid.
Okay, and that link, is that the link that you're talking about that will switch on, is that on that preschool-programs page?
Yeah, if you go to the preschool page, all of the classes have a class number.
Yeah.
So like Cedar Hills starts with a CH, Conestoga starts with a CO, and then the Nature Center has NC or JE for Jenkins Estate. And then there's a 2-digit number for the class, and then it's enrolled 2022. That will be the class number that you'll enroll for to sign up for the fall program.
So when you're logged into your account, you're searching by that code, or I guess I'm still not clear like how you use that code to register.
Yeah, so you have to already have a Tualatin Hills account. So if you don't have one, I definitely recommend getting that set up now. You can do it online. You can also do it at any of the facilities. And then once you log into your account online, there'll be a class search feature. And I believe I think there's one box that says class number. I don't know if that's the exact phrasing on it, but you can type in the class code. So like if you wanted to sign up for the Cedar Hills Jumpstart, would be CH01 enroll 2022. And you type that in for the class number and hit search, and it would pull up the class for it.
Thank you.
So yes, I did include the online registration. It's thprd.org/portal, and that will take you to your registration login page. And then once you log in, just as Ted described, you can search for that class and then it should pop up. And again, you'll be searching in winter term.
And if it's your first time registering in our system, I know it's not as convenient, but you are welcome to walk into any center. Just if you feel that you need that support as a first time. Okay.
You can also do the thing I did where I pretended to sign up for a class and put it in my cart and got all ready to go just so I could practice it. So if you get those numbers written down and so you're like at the ready, sometimes it's nice to practice beforehand.